Hey guys, welcome to our video. In our today's lecture, we will be having an introduction to the course that we are offering to you on HTML. In our today's lecture, we will be discussing about what is HTML, how does HTML help us in web development, what significance and what importance does HTML have when it comes to website development. We will also be discussing that what we will be learning throughout this course, what are going to be the learning outcomes of this course, and how can this course benefit you if you're trying to start your career as a web developer. So without wasting any further time, let's begin. Let's first start by discussing that what is HTML. Now HTML stands for hypertext markup language. Now there is a reason that we call it the language of the internet. Now HTML is a language that helps us to develop a website. It helps us to develop web pages. So whenever it comes to developing websites or developing web page, the first language, the most primary language that you need to know is HTML. HTML helps us to basically build that web page, to create that web page, to bring that web page into existence. So this has a lot of importance when it comes to HTML, and this is why we call it the language of the internet. Now this is a language that is interpreted by the web browser. Now what does this mean? Now first let's try to discuss that what are web browsers. Now web browsers are basically your Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Internet Explorer. All of these are known as your web browsers. Now this is a language that is understood by these web browsers. This is a language that helps us to communicate with these web browsers so that we can build a website, so that we can build a web page, we can basically add something to the website. So whatever we want to do regarding that, we need HTML for that. So this is a language that is understood or that is interpreted by our web browsers. This helps us to build a communication with our web browsers. So now moving on. Now, if we discuss about the uses of HTML, there are many different uses of HTML, but I have only listed over here the three primary uses of HTML. The first one is going to be that HTML helps us in developing a website. So whenever you think about developing a website, the first thing, as we discussed, was that you need to know HTML. HTML is going to help you to basically make those web pages. Now after that, it helps us to create different web pages. Now HTML can allow us to create many different web pages. We can add content in those web pages, and then it also helps us to link those web pages together. And finally, it helps us to add content in a website. So whenever we are talking about adding text to a website, whenever we are talking about adding images in a website, videos in a website, forms in a website, anything that you want to add to your website is gonna be done through HTML. Alright guys, so now let's first start by discussing that what we will be learning throughout this course, throughout this journey that we have on HTML. Now the first thing that we will be learning is of course that how can you develop a website or how can you develop a web page using HTML. Now once we have learned that, we will move on to adding content in our website. So for example, if you have to add some kind of text in your website, if you want to add an image to your website, or if you want to add any kind of content to your website, how are you going to do that? Through HTML. And then let's say that if we have multiple different web pages and then they have a lot of content inside of them, we should also know that how are we going to link them together. So we are going to link them together using HTML so that we can turn them into a website. So all of that is something we will be learning in this entire course, and there is a lot more that we will be discussing as well. So moving on, we will also be discussing that how can you add media in your web pages. Now media includes everything from images to videos to audio files, and also to how can you add videos from an external website onto your website. How can you import website from different other platforms such as YouTube or any other streaming platform. How can you basically add those media files as well? This is something we will be discussing, and we have a proper lecture on that prepared as well. So now also we will be discussing about one of the most important concepts when it comes to HTML, and that is the concept of file handling. File handling is a concept that allows you to add something to your website that is present locally on your computer. So for example, if you have an image on your computer, how can you add it to your website? If you have an image or a video on your computer, how can you add that video to your website? So all of that is done through the process of file handling, and that is something we will be discussing in a lot of detail as well. And then we will be discussing that how can you arrange data in a tabular form using HTML. So how can we create tables in HTML? How can we arrange arrange data in HTML in a tabular form, this is something we will be going over as well. So moreover, we will also be discussing that how can you create lists in HTML. Now there are many different types of lists in HTML. We will be going through them one by one, and we will see that how do they differ from each other, and how can you in general create a list in HTML, and why is it used. Now list is one of the most important concepts when it comes to HTML. It has many different applications, and we will go through basically each and every one of them. It will also help us to learn about how to create tables in HTML. Now, tables is also one of the very important concepts in website development. It helps us arrange the data. It helps us basically gather information, and then it helps us to arrange that information in a tabular form so that it is properly organized. And then finally, one of the most important features, or one of the most used features of HTML, and that is the feature of adding forms in your web pages. Now, forms in your web pages have a lot of significance. We use forms in many different applications. For example, if you want to create a sign up form, you want to create a login screen form, or you just want to basically ask the user to provide some kind of information, you need a form for that. So we will be discussing this in a lot of detail as well, that how can you create a form using HTML. Now, before we move on to discussing the benefits of learning HTML, I want to discuss a small quote with you that is, learning a skill never goes to waste. And HTML is an amazing skill to learn. It can help you develop websites, it can help you develop web pages, and it can definitely help you start your career as a web developer. Now, moving on towards the benefits of learning HTML. Now, HTML is a language that is perfect for people who are new to the programming world. If you don't have any past programming experience, if this is the first programming language that you're ever learning, then HTML is the perfect language to learn. HTML is really easy to understand. It is simple. It is English oriented. It is error free. Basically, in HTML, you never get an error. HTML is a very user friendly language. Now, learning the HTML is going to help you start a career in web development. In web development, HTML is the first language that you need to know. This is the language that is going to help you create the websites. It's going to help you create web pages, add content, and all of that we discussed earlier. And now this is an extremely easy to learn language. It is extremely easy to understand, and you're throughout this course, you're going to have no trouble understanding anything that we will be discussing throughout this course. Now, if we discuss about the outcomes of this course, now this course is going to help you learn how to develop a static web page in HTML. So static web pages are pages like a portfolio website, a business website, a website basically that provides information about something. It will help you start your career as a freelancer. In freelancing market, there is a lot of scope as a web developer. You can get a lot of jobs as a web developer. You can become an email developer. You can just basically start building your own websites. You can build websites for other people. So there is a lot of market as a freelancer. And also it is going to help you become a front end developer. So a front end developer is basically a developer who can develop a static web page, a landing web page, who can basically make some kind of portfolio website or some kind of informative website. So this is going to fulfill your dream of becoming a front-end developer. Now, more on this, it will also help you develop front-end websites. Now, front-end websites are any kind of websites that provide information about something, and it will help you attain full control over developing the websites or even editing the websites. Now, if you want to develop a website and if you want to edit anything regarding that website in any way, you can do it through HTML. You can change anything on a website, you can edit anything on a website, and you can also modify anything on the website using HTML. And this is going to help you pursue your dream and your career as a web developer. Now, summarize what we have discussed so far. The first step that you're going to take is that you're going to learn HTML. You're going to understand the concepts of HTML. You're going to learn how to develop websites, how to develop web pages. The second step is going to be you're going to flourish your skills. You're going to practice what you have learned. Now, programming more or less is just like math. The more you practice, the better you get. So the more you're going to practice, the better developer you're going to become. And then finally, you can start your dream career as a front-end website developer. You can start creating your own front-end websites, and that is going to help you to become a front-end developer. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope that you understood each and everything that we try to discuss today. So today we basically discussed about what is HTML, how does HTML help you in creating a website, how does HTML help you in creating web pages, adding content in the web pages. So now in our next lecture, we will be discussing about how can you write your first Hello World program using HTML, what kind of softwares we will be using, and how can you write a code using HTML. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.